What if the NFL had the college football playoff format? And you might be asking yourself, why would they want to do that? There's only 4 teams. Well, I figured why not see what would happen if we had a 4-team playoff only, just the 4 best teams in the playoffs, see who would win the championship. Now, it is the college football playoff. There's no actual format. There's no actual way of mathematically getting the 4 teams in. It's just who the committee thinks are the 4 best teams. So it's not just going to be like the 2 best AFC teams, Chiefs and Bills, and the 2 best NFC teams, Packers and Saints, in this tournament. We actually have to figure out who the 4 best teams are. And that's going to be on my opinion. Now, this is going to be regular season only I'm looking at. So that means we're not going to look at the playoffs. So Buccaneers, you might not be in the best 4 teams, even though I think the Buccaneers are definitely one of the 4 best teams. You know, they won the Super Bowl. We're only going off regular season stats, and the Buccaneers' regular season stats weren't the greatest. Now we have to look at what the college football playoff goes off of determining the 4 best teams. Well, they look at who wins their conference. So for this case, we're going to use if they won their division. That is there's a good thing to help a team get into the 4-team playoff. How the Chiefs won the AFC West, Packers won the NFC North. That helps them. And the Buccaneers did not win their division. That's going to hurt them, but that doesn't automatically eliminate them, as if they have a better resume than a team like the Saints, the Bills or the Titans, Seahawks, one of the teams that won their division, they could get in. Same thing with teams that are lower. We're also going to look at best wins, and for what I categorize as best wins are teams that are 10-6 or above, and those are the only teams that are in contention for the top 4. Probably should have showed that before, but here's the list of the teams that have a record that's better than 10-6. The Washington football team, which won their division, is not a part of this because, let's be honest, they only went 7-9. They should not even be considered. I didn't even look at a team that was lower than 10-6 because the next best record after 10-6 is 8-8, and I figured you have to have a winning record to even be considered for top 4. So that means if you beat a team that is in this area of teams that won 10 games or above, that is considered as a best win. And then we also have a worst losses as a category, which doesn't necessarily include blowouts, but that includes teams that are not in this category. So teams that are 8-8 below, which not all of them are horrible losses, but they are considered in this category because they're not one of the teams that are the best teams. Without further ado, let's take a look at each team's resume to see which 4 teams should make the NFL playoffs using the college football playoff format. So first up, we're looking at the Chiefs' record. They have the best record in the NFL, 14-2. Their best wins are Ravens, which they beat them by 14 points. Bills, they beat 26-7. Saints, they beat. Buccaneers, they beat by 3 points. And the Dolphins, they beat 33-27. That is 5 quality wins of teams that won 10 games or above. Their worst losses are the Raiders, which really isn't a bad loss, but they only have 2 losses, so they're both under worst losses because the teams they lost to did not win 10 games. Raiders and Chargers. Chargers, that was a game that they did not have any of their starters playing, so you kind of have to give the Chiefs benefit of the doubt, but it still comes under this category. And who knows, it could hurt them in the rankings, but if I had to say right now, Chiefs are probably a good shape to make the top 4. Packers at 13-3. They only surprisingly have 2 quality wins of teams who are 10 or above. It's Saints they beat by 7, and Titans they blew out 40-14. And in worst loss category, it's the Vikings 28-22. I know they lost to the Buccaneers by a lot, but the Buccaneers have 11 wins, so I don't put them under the worst losses. But that is also a head-to-head that could come into play later on, possibly. But for their worst losses, the Vikings. Packers don't have many bad losses. However, very lacking in the wins category. And another team I would say was probably going to make it in. I already know my 4 teams. I was recording this, but I'm not going to spoil anything. But those not having quality wins could hurt them in the seeding of the best 4 teams. Bills also at a 13-3 record. They have a lot more better wins than the Packers. They have best wins of Dolphins, 31-28, Rams 35-32, Seahawks they beat by 10, Steelers they beat by 11, and Dolphins they blew out by 30. So they beat the Dolphins twice, which the Dolphins barely qualify as a best win. Even though the Dolphins didn't even make the playoffs, they still categorize as a best win because they are in the 10 games or above category, which I would count as a best win. And their worst loss is the Cardinals 30-32, and I would have to say that is a pretty good worst loss because the Cardinals nearly made the playoffs. So not a bad worst loss for the Bills. Now, all that makes it look like they should be above the Packers. I will say this, they also did lose to the Titans, which I will show later on when the Titans get the best win. And they got blown out by the Titans, which the Packers blew out the Titans. So that's a very common opponent the Packers and Bill have, which could affect seeding. Next one, now these next several teams are definitely going to be in consideration. I would say probably the 10-6 teams of Rams and Dolphins are kind of a long shot, but the Saints at 12-4, surprisingly, I looked back at this and I was actually kind of shocked. They only have 2 quality wins over teams with 10 wins or above, and that's both against the Buccaneers. That is it. Shockingly, that's all they have. I really thought they'd have more, but they only have 2 quality wins, and if you look at their losses, the Raiders one isn't bad, but that Eagles loss, 24-21. We know in college football, if you have a bad loss, that does hurt you. And that's a bad loss to the Eagles, who finished with one of the worst records in the league. What is it? The 3rd worst record in the league. That could be something that knocks the Saints out of this 4-team playoffs. It very well could. They don't have many quality wins. They did win their division, though, and they are one of the teams in consideration for one of the 4 spots. I will tell you that. I mean, all these teams are in consideration, in my opinion, but let's be honest. Do you really think the Dolphins are going to get in the top 4? No, but I'm going to show their resume anyways. The next team is the Steelers at 12-4, and you might have thought they might have played an easy schedule, and that's how they were, like, undefeated for a while, but they actually did play some tough opponents. They have 5 quality wins. Browns, they blew out. Titans, they won in a very close game, which is a very key head-to-header right there. They beat the Titans, and the Titans, do have one worse loss than them, but they are definitely in consideration for this top spot. Not the top spot, but the top 4 spots. Ravens, they beat 28-24. Rams, they also beat, and the Colts, they beat. So 5 quality wins. However, I'd say that they don't have any quality wins of teams above them, only teams that are behind them. They don't have any wins above the Saints, Bills, Packers, or Chiefs, but it is more quality wins that the Saints have. And you look at their worst losses, Washington 23-17 and Bengals 17-27. Neither one of those is a good loss. Washington, you could make the exception because they won their division, but Washington was in a very bad division. So that's where you kind of have to look at it as, it's a bad loss, yes, but I would say even the Bengals loss isn't even as bad as the Eagles loss, even though the Bengals loss is actually kind of bad. They didn't even have Joe Burrow in that game. So that is a very bad loss, but they do have more quality wins over the Saints, which could come in key later on. Next up, Seahawks at 12-4. They have only 2 quality wins, and they have bottom of the barrel wins. Dolphins they beat, and Rams they beat. Both teams are 10-6, barely even qualify as quality wins. And just like I want to emphasize here, even though Seahawks don't win a playoff game, I'm only going off regular season. No playoff games are included in the best wins or losses category. Only regular season, because why would I go off playoffs if I'm trying to see who makes the 4-team playoffs? And their bad losses are the Cardinals 34-37, which isn't really that bad of a loss, and the Giants 17-12. So not only do the Seahawks have not great quality wins, but they have a bad loss to the Giants, and that is a bad loss. Not as bad as the Eagles, but it is a bad loss. And that's going to hurt the Seahawks' chances of actually making these playoffs because they did win their division, but they don't have many quality wins, and their losses aren't the greatest. Looking at the Titans at 11-5, they have a great quality win over the Bills, blowing them out. That is a very good win for the Titans. They have a good win against the Ravens and a good win against the Colts. That really helps them probably leapfrog the Seahawks in these rankings. Even though they have one less loss, they have more high-quality wins than the Seahawks, which I think is a very important statistic. And beating the Bills, that is a very good win. I'd say so far that's other than what the Chiefs do when they beat the Bills. I'd say this is definitely one of the better wins they have on the board. The Titans have definitely one of the better wins here, other than maybe the Buccaneers probably have the best win. But I'd say the Bills have a very high-quality win. You look at their worst losses, the Bengals is 20-31. Not the greatest win, but greatest loss, but it's not horrible. Kind of like the Steelers, which helps the Steelers because their worst loss is also the Bengals. But yeah, Titans are definitely in consideration. Looking at the Buccaneers, the Super Bowl champs record, they did not win their division, which hurts them very much, especially only with 11-5 record. They have a really good quality win. However, it's their only quality win. I was actually shocked when I saw this. The Buccaneers' only good win is the Packers. It's a very good win. It's probably the best win out of all of them, but it's only 38. It's 38-10 over the Packers. Their only quality win. Super Bowl champs are already off to a very bad shape of even trying to make this 4-team playoffs. Their worst loss is actually a good worst loss, is the Bears 20-19, which shows that they beat the bad teams, but they couldn't beat the good teams in the regular season. The only bad team they lost to was a playoff team, which is the Bears 2019, but their other 4 losses were teams that are in this category of 10 wins or above. So that hurts the Buccaneers very much here and could cost them a shot in the top 4. Next team, Ravens 11-5. I'll probably go a little bit faster with these teams because they're not as much as in consideration. Their best wins are Browns beating the Browns twice and the Colts. Only teams that are below them, which isn't going to help the Ravens. They didn't win their division either. That went to the Steelers. Their worst loss is to the Patriots, which isn't a bad loss, but obviously it doesn't help them. 11-5, I'd say the Ravens are a long shot to make the top 4. The Browns at 11-5. Their best wins are definitely better than the Ravens. Colts, Titans, and Steelers, although the Ravens did beat them head-to-head, so that would definitely hurt the Browns and probably rank the Ravens above the Browns. But, the Browns beat the Titans, which beat the Bills, which is actually kind of impressive. They also beat the Steelers, who won the division, but the Steelers also beat them, so they kind of cancel each other out. Their worst losses, however, are not good. Raiders, not a bad loss, but then they lost to the Jets. Not the worst loss of all these teams. That would go to a team coming up, but that is a very bad loss. There's not really much other to say about that. That loss and not winning their division pretty much knocks them out of this playoff contention. The next team, Colts at 11-5, and this is the team I'm talking about with the worst loss. We'll get to that in a second. Their best wins, they also have one of the best wins out of all the teams, and that is beating the Packers 34-31. That's not as good as the Buccaneers' best win, but also going along with the Titans 34-17 win. Very 2 high-quality wins, just kind of like the Browns. So they have high-quality wins, but their worst loss is the worst one of all. Losing to the Jaguars 20-27. That is a very bad worst loss. And that's probably going to do the Colts in, honestly. I don't see how, obviously, looking at the best 4 teams, if they don't lose to the Jaguars and they're 12-4, they win their division, they're probably in the top 4 teams, honestly, if they don't lose to the Jaguars in the first game of the season, because they would win their division over the Titans. So that one win would get them into the playoffs, and honestly probably would have changed their whole season if we're talking legitimate NFL now I think about it. But yeah, I would say that knocks them out of the playoffs. And now we're on to the 10-6 teams. These teams, I'm not going to spend much time because they're not going to be in. Rams at 10-6 didn't win their division. Their best wins are the Seahawks and Buccaneers, which is a good win, although Buccaneers in the regular season didn't do that well, so it's really not even that great of a win. Their worst losses, they have 3 of them, which is not great. 49ers twice, which really were not that good this year, and they lost to the Jets. So just with those worst losses, Rams, they're not in. And the Dolphins at 10-6, it could be better or worse depending on how you look at it. The Dolphins did beat the Rams head-to-head, which would actually put them ahead in the rankings if I actually did a top 25 rankings for the 32 teams. But I'm only ranking the top 4, probably 6 teams actually, just to see who were the first 2 out. Yeah, they beat the Rams head-to-head, but then lost to the Patriots and Broncos. Neither one is that bad of a loss, but 10-6 record, not really any quality wins other than the Rams. Definitely going to keep the Dolphins out of it. So now it's time to look at who are the best 4 teams, and we're going to do this how the college football playoff does it with their rankings. Number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. 14-2. They have a lot of quality wins. They have the best record. Are you really shocked? They are deserving of the number 1 seed and will, host the 4 seed in the first round of the playoffs. The number 2 seed, the Green Bay Packers. I went with the Packers. At first, I was going to put the Bills at the number 2 seed, but that Titans game convinced me to put the Packers above. The Packers blew out the Titans 40-14. The Titans beat the Bills 42-16. I think that's the only common opponent they have. That is the only common opponent they have that they beat or lost to. And it's that big of a number that even though the Packers only have 2 quality wins, that is enough for me to put them ahead of the Bills, which means the number 3 seed is the Buffalo Bills. They're also 13-3. I don't think it should be any shock of who the top 3 teams are because they all have the best records. Bills have a lot of high-quality wins. They don't really have any bad losses, but the reason why they're not the 2 seed is because of the Titans. It's the only reason why they don't have the 2 seed. The number 4 seed might be a little controversial, but I have the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 4. Yes, the Steelers. Now, I don't think they're a top 4 team overall. I don't. But in the regular season, they have a 12-4 record, which is tied with the Saints and Seahawks for the 4th best. You look at their quality wins. They have 5 high-quality wins. Yes, the Saints did beat the Bucs twice, but the loss to the Eagles is not good. And it's only the Buccaneers don't even have that many quality wins. And in the regular season, if we're going off college football playoff style, the Buccaneers don't have any high-quality wins. They didn't win their division, so it's not as impressive. Steelers have more quality wins than the Saints. I think their wins are better than the Saints, even though, of course, I think the Buccaneers are probably the best team in the NFL, seeing how they won the Super Bowl. But we can't look at the playoffs. We can only look at the regular season, which is why I put the Steelers over the Saints in the playoffs. I think I actually have Titans at 5 and Saints at 6, actually, which is also controversial. But the Titans have that very impressive win over the Bills, which boosts them over the Saints. They also have a better loss than the Saints do, I guess. So even though with one less loss, that win over the Bills leapfrogs them over the Saints. Yes, it might be controversial. You might think the Buccaneers deserve this spot. I don't even have them in my top 6 because we can't go off the playoffs. So sorry the Buccaneers aren't there, but that's just how it is. And that's why the college football playoffs is not a good system. I could rant about it for a while, but this was just for the video. I spent a lot of time going over this. Haven't even got to the Madden simulation yet. I'm sure that's why you guys came for, to see who would win the Madden simulation between these 4 teams. We got the Chiefs, Packers, Bills, and Steelers. First matchup will be Chiefs versus Steelers. Let's see what happens. I spent a lot of time talking about which 4 teams are going to make it, and it's probably more time I wanted to spend on it before I got to the simulations, but that's all right. I think I had to explain why I put the Steelers in. If you still don't get why I put the Steelers in, and you think there should be 2 NFC, 2 AFC, in my opinion, it should just be the 4 best teams. Even though I don't think the Steelers are the 4th best team, you look at their resume, they won their division, they have a lot of high quality wins. In my opinion, that was enough to put them over the Saints and the Titans and the Seahawks and all those other teams and the Buccaneers. Anyways, we're going to sim this game. Can the 4-seeded Steelers upset the 1-seeded Chiefs to face the winner of the Packers versus Bills game? Let's see what happens. All right, Saints on the board. Or sorry, maybe it should be the Saints. I don't know. Chiefs up 7-3 over the Steelers. Almost said it wrong again. Now Chiefs up 21-3, 24-3. Classic college football game where the number 1 seed blows out the 4 seed. 31-10, 38-10. Chiefs lead 41-10. Now they're up 44-10. 44-13 is the final score. So yeah, kind of like how the college football playoffs goes. The 1 seed or the better team, Chiefs, or you could call them Alabama, beat the Steelers, which you could call them Oklahoma or Notre Dame, whichever you want to call them. Not shocked, this is what happened. And then this is where the conversation's like, oh, it should have been the Saints or the Buccaneers or something, or the Titans as the 4 seed. But that's how the college football playoffs works. It's controversial. In my opinion, they should expand it. But hey, I picked my 4 best teams in the regular season. Chiefs are on to the championship game. Now time to look at the Packers versus Bills. This is a matchup I've done a couple different times now in my simulation videos I've done so far. Might be controversial on who gets the 2 seed. I went with the Packers because of the Titans game. I think there's no arguing who the top 3 teams are. So, this game really shouldn't have that much controversy. I think it's a very fine decision to put the Packers as the 2 seed and the Bills as the 3 seed. But let's see if the Bills can win this game over the Packers to make an all AFC championship, or will it be a Chiefs versus Packers championship? Sim to the end of the game. Bills up top early, 7-0. Now we're tied again, 7-7. Now Bills up 14-7. Now the Bills up 21-7. Now it's 21-10. Bills have a healthy lead, 20-10. Packers are choking in a game before the Super Bowl like they normally do, 28-17. Oh, they're coming back though, 28-25, but too little, too late. we will have an all AFC championship, or AFC Super Bowl, Bills versus Chiefs. So this has been a short Madden simulation, maybe not video because I spent probably like 15 minutes talking about the 4 teams that we're going to get in or looking at everyone's resume. But here we are, Chiefs versus Bills in a 4-team NFL playoff format. Chiefs have won a lot of simulation videos I've done. Spoilers, I should have said spoilers before I said that, but it doesn't really matter. They didn't win the March Madness one, but they did win the other ones I've done. So Chiefs are probably a favorite here, but in this all AFC Super Bowl, can the Bills knock off the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl in a 4-team playoff format? Let's see what happens when we sim to the end of the game. Bills up early, 7-0, got a score very early on. It's 7-3. Bills have a 14-3 lead over the Chiefs. Now it's 14-10. Chiefs are always good at coming back. It's 17-14. They took the lead. Now it's 21-17. Bills back on the lead at halftime. 24-17. They're up by a touchdown. Now they're tied 24-24. Close game in the fourth quarter. Who's going to get the score? Chiefs up 31-24. Getting the Bills score. They cannot. And another simulation is going to the Chiefs as the champions. They didn't win it in real life. But in Madden, Madden really wants the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl in all these different playoff formats. So the Kansas City Chiefs do it. They win the NFL college football playoff bracket. Obviously, this is something that would not happen in real life. I think that's pretty obvious. It would not happen in real life. But, why would it not happen? Well, because it's not interesting. Because 14 teams is better than 4 teams. And it's too controversial. I guarantee you, people will be interested in why I put the Steelers in over a team like the Saints or whatever. I did that because I looked at their resume. I don't think the Steelers are one of the best 4 teams, but it's just kind of what you have to do, just like the college football playoffs. Did we really think Notre Dame was one of the best 4 teams? I don't know. Maybe their resume said they're one of the best 4 teams, but the eye test of them losing badly to Clemson showed me they're not one of the best 4 teams. So, no matter what, this college football playoff format system is controversial, and I think it should be expanded, but it doesn't look like that's something they're interested in doing, so I figured why not see how it would work in the NFL. In my opinion, it doesn't work well. This playoff format they have right now is, in real life, is a good way of finding out who the best team is. But I'm going to stop rambling on. I did a lot of that in this video. Not much of a simulation here. Hope you enjoyed. I have more Madden simulations coming on in the future. I'll see you all later. Peace.